"Read it to me one more time," my mother said. So I did. A toll plaza outside Morgantown, West Virginia. 11:41 on a Tuesday morning. $86 in charges and fees on a car that had not moved in 12 days. Her Buick. 90 miles from the garage where the family had parked it the afternoon we took her keys. We took them because we believed she had caused a collision at the pharmacy and could not remember doing it. I led that meeting. I brought the folder. I told her it was a billing error. Plates get misread all the time. I drove over to prove it. The photograph was grainy and gray, shot from above. It still showed a cracked fog light on the lower left, an inspection sticker with a torn corner, a faded decal from the school where she managed the cafeteria for 22 years. I stood in that garage and matched all three, one at a time, against the actual car. Not a wrong plate. Not a billing mistake. Then I opened the driver's door. The odometer read 463 miles higher than the number I had written down myself. The seat was pushed back farther than my mother's legs can reach. One spare key existed. I had handed it to my brother. I would like to tell you I understood all of it standing there in the cold. I didn't. What I understood was that the paperwork disagreed with the family, and in my experience, the paperwork usually wins. I review automobile claims. 26 years of it. My whole working life has been holding two documents next to each other until I find the seam where they can't both be true. A man says he was rear-ended at 4 in the afternoon. The repair estimate describes damage on the left rear quarter panel. The tow invoice has him 12 miles away at 4:15. Somewhere in that stack is a sentence somebody wrote without thinking, and that sentence is usually the truth. I had never once turned that habit on my own family. It hadn't occurred to me that I might need to. The garage smelled like cut grass and old motor oil. My father built it the year I started high school, and it has never fit the car properly. You have to fold the mirror in to get the door open. I knew every dent on that Buick the way you know a relative's hands. I took pictures anyway. Fog light, sticker, decal, plate, then the odometer, framed so the door frame showed in the corner of the shot, because a photograph of numbers alone proves nothing about which car those numbers came from. Habit. It comes on like a light switch, and it does not ask my permission. My notebook was in my purse. I had written the mileage down 12 days earlier, sitting in that same seat, because when you take something away from a person, you should be able to say exactly what condition it was in when you took it. That felt responsible at the time. It felt almost kind. 463 miles. I went back inside. My mother was at the kitchen table with the toll notice squared up in front of her, the way she used to square up the lunch count sheets. 79 years old. Reading glasses on a chain. A cardigan the color of oatmeal that she has owned longer than my marriage lasted. "Well?" she said. "It's your car," I said. "It's not a mix-up. The car in that photograph is the car in your garage." She didn't gasp. She didn't ask how that was possible. She looked at the notice, and then she looked out the window at the garage, and something moved across her face that I have spent 5 weeks trying to name. It was not surprise. "Who's been here?" I asked. "Anybody stopping by, borrowing things, checking on you?" "People stop by," she said. "Mom." She took her glasses off. "Elena, don't fix this," she said. "Find out what happened. Those are 2 different jobs and you've only ever wanted the first one." I let that sit. I did not have a good answer for it then, and I am not certain I have one now. 12 days before, 4 of us had stood in that same kitchen while she sat in the front room, and we had decided that a woman who backs into a parked car at a pharmacy and cannot recall doing it should not be driving anymore. I took the key ring off the hook by the back door myself. I remember thinking that I was being gentle about it. We took her keys over a scraped bumper in a parking lot the size of a tennis court, and in the 12 days since, while those keys sat in a drawer in my house, her car had gone 463 miles. That night I did what I always do when a file stops making sense. I went back to the beginning of it. The beginning was a phone call from my brother on a Sunday in April. Mark calls me maybe 6 times a year, and 4 of those are about our mother, so I answered already braced. "Something happened with Mom," he said. "At the pharmacy." He told it the way he tells everything, which is sideways. There had been an incident in the lot on the Thursday. Somebody's car got hit. Mom's Buick was involved. The property manager had gotten in touch. There was a note. There was a phone number. It was all being sorted out. Then he lowered his voice a little. "Here's the part I don't like. She doesn't remember it." I asked what he meant. I asked her about it and she went quiet. She wouldn't say she did it and she wouldn't say she didn't. She just went somewhere else. He let a beat go by. That's what scares me. Not the bumper. The bumper's a bumper. I have listened to recorded statements for a living since I was 32. I know what a rehearsed sentence sounds like. I know that the tell is usually a small, unnecessary detail offered before anyone asks for it. And I did not hear a single one of those things, because it was my brother, and because he sounded frightened, and because frightened is the one register I have never learned to audit. Over the next 3 days I built a file. That is not a figure of speech. I printed the crash statistics for drivers over 75. I printed a checklist from a hospital website about warning signs. I made notes about the time she got turned around coming back from the fabric store in the fall, which had seemed like nothing at the time, and now seemed like a data point. I put it all in a folder with a clasp. On the Sunday we sat in her living room. Mark was there. Ava was there, 17, and wishing very hard that she were anywhere else. 2 of my cousins came. My mother sat in the wing chair by the window with her hands in her lap while 5 people who loved her discussed her in the third person for 40 minutes. She said almost nothing. Twice she started to say something and stopped. At the end of it she said, "All right." That was all. All right. And I felt relief go through the room like heat coming on, and I mistook that relief for agreement. Here is the thing I know professionally, and did not apply to my own mother. Evidence does not arrive on its own. Somebody carries it into the room, and who carried it in matters as much as what it says. Every fact in that folder had come from Mark. The pharmacy, the other car, the note, the silence. He was the only person who had spoken to her about it, and he was the person who told us what her silence meant. Nobody interviewed her alone. Not once. Not for a minute. I would have opened a fraud referral on my own investigation. I drove over the next morning with 2 coffees. She was already dressed, hair set, the toll notice still on the table where she had left it. I said I wanted to go back through the pharmacy day with her. Just her and me. No folder. Start wherever you want, I said. What do you remember about that Thursday? She turned her cup a quarter turn on the table. Elena, she said, I never told you I was driving. I heard the sentence. I want to be honest about what happened next, because it is not flattering. My first reaction was not shock. It was the small, ugly flicker of a person whose theory is being threatened. She's confused, I thought. This is exactly what Mark described. Then I made myself do my job. Say that again, I said. Slowly. I never told any of you I was driving that car, she said. You told me. All 5 of you told me. In my own front room. And I let you. Why would you let us? She looked at her hands. Ask me a different question first. So I did, because I was not ready for that one either. Where are the spare keys? There is a wooden key rack by her back door that my father made out of a piece of walnut left over from a bookshelf. 4 hooks. She has used the 2nd hook for the Buick since 1998 and the 4th for the spare set. The 4th hook was empty. Mark has them, she said. I remembered the moment then, the way you remember a step you missed on a staircase. The Sunday of the meeting, standing in the kitchen, the key ring in my hand, and Mark saying it made sense for him to hang on to the spare. He lives 11 minutes away. I live 40. His reasons were practical and boring, which is what made them convincing. Snow emergency, and they plow the street. The driveway was getting seal-coated in the spring. What if the car had to be moved and Mom couldn't move it? And I had said, sure, that's sensible, and handed them over. It took about 9 seconds. It was the single most consequential thing I did that day, and I did not think about it once. I called him from her driveway. He was cheerful. He usually is. He asked about my knee. He asked whether Mom was eating. I told him a toll notice had come for her car, out of West Virginia, dated a Tuesday, and asked if he had any idea how that could happen. There was a pause that lasted slightly too long to be nothing. Huh, he said. Those cameras get it wrong all the time. Plate's probably off by a digit. I checked the photo against the car, I said. It's hers. Then somebody's cloning plates. That's a whole thing now, Elle. It's on the news. Where are the spare keys, Mark? Somewhere in the truck, I think. Under the seat with everything else. He laughed. You know how I am. Then he said, without being asked, anyway, my van's been in the shop. It's been a mess of a month. He moved on. He asked whether Ava's college paperwork had come. He said he had to run. I stood in my mother's driveway for a while after that call, watching a neighbor's sprinkler go around. Nobody had asked him about his van. I went back into the garage for the registration, because if my mother was going to dispute $86 in tolls, she was going to need her own paperwork, and she was going to file it in her own name. That much I had figured out by then. The registration was in the glove compartment where it has lived for 20 years, in a plastic sleeve with the insurance card behind it. Folded underneath, creased into thirds, was a repair shop receipt. The shop was in Pennsylvania, 40 minutes north of her house. The vehicle line read the year, make, and model of her Buick. And at the top, in the box marked customer, printed in the shop's blocky uppercase, was a name that was not my mother's. It was my brother's. I did not take it out of the car. That sounds like a small thing. It isn't. In my line of work, the second a document leaves the place you found it, half of what it can tell you is gone. So I left the glove compartment open, held my phone above the receipt without touching it, and photographed it where it lay, with the plastic sleeve and the corner of the owner's manual in frame. Then I photographed it again straight down, close, so the print would read. Then I folded it back into thirds exactly the way it had been and shut the compartment. Whatever this turned into, I wanted it to be my mother's document, found in my mother's car, in the condition it was in when the world put it there. I sat in her kitchen with my phone flat on the table and read it 11 times. Customer, Mark Ward. A phone number, 10 digits, and I did not need to look it up, because I have dialed it since he had a landline in a rented duplex. Vehicle, her Buick. The year and the model, and the last 6 of the identification number. Work described. And this is where I stopped breathing for a second, as replacement of the rear bumper cover, refinish, and repair of the left rear quarter. Estimate total, $1,740. Deposit taken. And in the corner, where a body shop prints the thing nobody ever looks at, the date and time the ticket was written. That same Tuesday, 3:52 in the afternoon. I opened the toll notice and set the two side by side, the way I do at my desk 40 times a week. 11:41 that morning, a plaza south of Morgantown. 3:52 that afternoon, a body shop 40 minutes north of my mother's house. Between those 2 points, there are about 130 miles of road and 4.5 hours, and any driver alive could cover it with time left over for lunch. They were not 2 events. They were 1 day. I want to be careful here because I have watched adjusters wreck good files by falling in love with a theory. So I made myself argue the other side, out loud, in my mother's kitchen, which is a thing I do and which I would appreciate you not repeating. Could someone else have used the name? A shop takes the name off a driver's license or off the customer's own mouth. Nobody walks in and volunteers my brother's name and my brother's cell number for a car registered to a 79-year-old woman. Could my mother have driven it and let him handle the paperwork? She had no keys. I had one set in a drawer 40 minutes away and I had put it there myself. Could the shop have made an error? Shops make errors constantly. Shops do not invent a customer, a phone number, and a deposit. That left one road, and I did not want to walk down it. I went out and checked the car once more, and this time I did the thing I should have done first, because the first search is never the real search. Under the passenger seat, wedged back against the rail, there was a curl of paper. Route sheets. 3 of them, printed off the kind of dispatch software small service companies use, folded lengthwise, the way a man folds paper to put in a shirt pocket. Customer names, addresses, appliance models, 2-hour windows. One sheet was all local. One ran south along the river, and one was West Virginia. 4 stops. The farthest of them in a town I had to look up, a town that sits about 11 miles past the toll plaza in the photograph. That was when the last of it went out of me. Not anger, something flatter than anger. I sat sideways in my mother's car with my feet on her garage floor, and understood that my brother had been driving her Buick on his repair route, out of state, in the middle of the work week, 12 days after the family agreed that this car was too dangerous for the woman who owns it to touch. I brought the phone inside and showed her the pictures. The receipt. The route sheets. His name in the customer box. She read all of it slowly, top to bottom, the way she reads anything, and I watched her not be surprised for the second time in 2 days. "Mom," I said. "You knew." "I knew some," she said. "Which some?" "And my mother, who taught me that you finish the job in front of you before you go looking for the next one, put her hand flat on the table and said, 'Elena, don't call your brother today. He has your car. I know where my car is. It's in my garage. She said it evenly. If you call him tonight, he'll have an answer by morning, and it'll be a good one, and then I'll have to spend the rest of my life deciding whether to believe it. I sat back down. Then you tell me, I said. All of it. Because right now I have documents and no story, and documents without a story are how people get hurt. She was quiet long enough that the refrigerator cycled on. Do you remember the Thursday, she said. The Thursday you all keep talking about. The pharmacy. Before the pharmacy. She folded her glasses. Your brother came here at 6 in the morning. I hadn't known that. Nobody had known that. His van had died in his driveway the night before. Not a dead battery. Something in the fuel system that a man who fixes washing machines could not fix in the dark with a work light, and the shop could not look at it until the following week. He had 11 service calls booked, 4 of them commercial, 2 of them for the property management company that gives his outfit most of its steady work. He is 54 years old. He has been at that company 6 years, which is the longest he has been anywhere. He has a 17-year-old and a car payment and a lease. He stood right there, she said, pointing at the strip of floor by the back door, and he did not ask me. That's the part I keep coming back to. He didn't ask. He said, Ma, I'm gonna lose the route. And he looked at the hook. And you gave him the keys. I gave him the keys. She said it without a wobble in it. For one day. His day. Home by supper. I asked why she never mentioned it. Not that week, not since, not in a room with 5 relatives deciding she was finished driving. Because I was going to, she said. That was the plan. He'd bring the car back, he'd tell you himself about the van, and you'd all say what a mess, and that would be the end of it. She looked at the window. One day, Elena, I have loaned that boy a car for one day about 40 times since he was 16. There is a version of my mother in that sentence that the folder never had a place for, not a confused old woman being managed. A woman making a decision about her own property, in her own kitchen, at 6 in the morning, on purpose. So he took it, I said. He took it. And? She got up. She rinsed a cup that did not need rinsing, and she stood with her back to me at the sink for what felt like a long time, and when she spoke, her voice had gone careful in a way that I had not heard since my father's last year. He brought it back at 9 at night, she said, and he parked it out on the street instead of the driveway, and he came in and put the keys on the table and talked about Ava's school for 10 minutes without sitting down. Mum. I went out with a flashlight after he left, my mother said. The whole back corner of my car was caved in. The dent, when she finally showed me, had already been washed. That detail stayed with me. Somebody had run that car through a wash before returning it, which does nothing for a crushed bumper cover, but does a great deal for road film and for the little smear of another vehicle's paint that usually rides along the edge of an impact like that. I photographed it anyway. 4 angles, wide, medium, tight, and one with the tape measure I keep in my glove box laid along the crease. Habit again. It cost me nothing and it made my mother laugh for the first time in 3 weeks. You're doing the face, she said. What face? The one from work. You've had it since you were 9. Then she told me the rest of that night, and the rest of that night is the part I did not have the stomach to hear the first time she offered it, 12 days earlier, when I was busy holding a folder. She had called him. Not the next morning. Right then at 9:40 at night, standing in the street next to her own car with a flashlight in her hand. I said, Mark, what happened to my car, she told me. And he said, Ma, I clipped a loading post at a customer's building. I feel terrible, I'll take care of it. Did you believe him? I believed the first half. He asked her for one night. That was the phrase. And she repeated it to me exactly. The way you repeat something you have been turning over for weeks. Give me one night to figure out how to pay for it. Don't say anything to Elena yet. She'll make it into a whole thing. And I said, all right, my mother said, because he was standing in my street at 10 o'clock at night with his hands shaking, and because he is my son, and because I have been giving that boy one night since he was 19 years old. One night became 2. 2 became the weekend. And on the Sunday, in her front room, 5 people who loved her explained to her that her judgment could no longer be trusted. I asked her the question I had been carrying since the garage. The spare keys. When did he take those? My mother looked at me for a while. Elena, she said, he didn't take those. I heard it. And then I heard it again a second later, the way you hear a sound and only afterward understand what made it. He had put her own keys on the kitchen table that night. Her set. He gave those back. The spare set stayed on the 4th hook by the back door, untouched. for 11 more days. Until the Sunday. Until I lifted them off that hook myself and put them in my brother's hand in this kitchen, because he lives 11 minutes away and I live 40, and it seemed sensible, and it took 9 seconds, and nobody in the room thought about it for one more second than that. There's one more thing, she said. And then I want to sit outside. What? That lot at the pharmacy. She was gathering the cups. Samuel Price manages that building. He's had trouble out there for years. Kids and delivery trucks and people cutting through. Every single incident, he writes it up. Photographs, statements, the whole business. He keeps a packet. I stopped with my hand on the door. And I own that car, my mother said. So who do you suppose he'd hand it to? I offered to make the call. Of course I did. It is the only reflex I have. My mother said no, and she said it the way she used to say it across a cafeteria line to a boy trying to take 2 puddings. It's my car and my name on the accident, she said. You can drive me. You can sit there. But he's going to hand it to me. So, on the Thursday morning, I drove her to the pharmacy and parked at the far end of the lot, near the loading side, where the pavement is patched in a long, dark seam. She wore her good coat. She had her registration and her insurance card in a bank envelope, and she had written down what she wanted to ask on the back of a grocery list, and I did not correct a single word of it. Samuel Price came out of the back office with a clipboard under his arm the way some men carry a newspaper. 62, gray at the temples, the exact posture of a man who has spent 20 years asking people not to park in the fire lane. He remembered her. He asked about the church supper, and when she said she was the registered owner of the Buick in the incident from the second Thursday in April, and that she would like a copy of whatever he had written up, his face changed in a small, professional way. I've got a packet, he said. I keep a packet on everything out here. Insurance people, lawyers, everybody wants it eventually. He looked at her, then at me, then back at her. You're the owner. I can print you the owner's copy. It took him 9 minutes. He would not take money for the copies. We read it in the car with the engine off. Samuel writes like a man who expects to be doubted. Date, time, 2:20 in the afternoon. Weather, clear and dry. Location diagram, hand-drawn, with the light pole marked and the cart return marked and an arrow for direction of travel. The struck vehicle, a silver sedan belonging to a customer who had gone in for a prescription, damage to the left front door and fender. Photographs, 11 of them. The sedan. The paint transfer. A wide shot of the lot showing the seam of patched asphalt so that anyone reading later could orient themselves, and a photograph of a note, taken where the note lay on the sedan's windshield, held down by the wiper blade. Torn off something with a printed edge. 6 words and a phone number. Backed into you. Sorry. Call me. My mother put her finger on the screen of my phone, on the enlarged photograph, and did not say anything, because there was nothing to say about the handwriting. Nobody makes a capital B like that on purpose. He has made them that way since the 4th grade, when a teacher told him it looked like a treble clef, and he decided he liked that. Under the photographs was a page-headed statement of employee witness. A pharmacy clerk, name and initials, 1 paragraph in her own hand. She had been outside collecting carts. She heard it. She looked up and saw a man walking around the back of a maroon Buick, looking at the damage, then looking at the sedan. Middle-aged, dark hair going gray. A gray work shirt with something stitched over the pocket. He wrote something on a piece of paper and put it under the wiper, and then he got in the Buick and left. And no, she had not gotten a good look at his face. And yes, she was sure about the shirt, because her brother-in-law wears the same kind. I read it twice. Then I read the last line of Samuel's own summary, which was written in the flat way of a man protecting himself. Owner of striking vehicle identified by plate. Contact number left at scene does not match owner's listed number. Called the number left at scene on the following Monday. Spoke with a male who identified himself as a family member and stated he would handle the repair. The number was printed there, in the report, all 10 digits of it. I did not need to compare it to anything. I have known that number for 18 years. My mother took her glasses off and held them in her lap, and for a minute the only sound in the car was the compressor on the store's roof. Well, she said, there it is. He told all of us it was you. He never said the word, she said. That's what I want you to understand, and then I don't want to defend him again. He never once said, Ma was driving. He said, something happened at the pharmacy. And he said, She doesn't remember it. And he let the rest of you do the arithmetic. That's the same thing. It is the same thing, she agreed. I'm only telling you how he did it. It matters to me how he did it. Here is where you would expect me to say I drove straight to his house. I want you to know that I got as far as the end of the lot with my blinker on. My mother reached over and turned the blinker off. Come home, she said. There's more. And I'm the one who has it. And I'd like to be sitting in my own chair. What she had was her phone. My mother has a phone she does not particularly like, with the text size turned up as far as it goes, and she uses it mostly for photographs of her sister's dog. She put it in my hands herself. I want that on the record, because in 5 weeks of this I never once took anything of hers that she did not hand me. Start at the Thursday, she said. Read them all. Don't skip the boring ones. The Thursday, 9:51 at night, after she had gone out with the flashlight. Ma, I'm sorry. I'll fix it, I promise. Just don't call Elle tonight. Friday, 7 in the morning. Working on the money. Give me till Monday. Friday. Late. I know. One more day. Saturday afternoon. And this is the one where my hands went cold, and I made myself scroll past it and read the rest first. Because if you read the worst message first, you will read every message after it wrong. Ma, listen. If everybody thinks you decided to stop driving on your own, they'll worry less. Nobody has to get into the whole thing about the car. It's cleaner that way. Let me handle Sunday. Saturday. An hour later. From her. I don't like this, Mark. Saturday. 4 minutes after that. From him. It's not a lie. You've been talking about giving it up anyway. It's just letting them think what they already think. She had not answered that one. There is no bubble under it. I sat in her front room and looked at the blank space where my mother did not answer her son, and I thought about her sitting in the wing chair the next afternoon with her hands in her lap while 5 people told her who she was. Sunday, I said. There's nothing on Sunday. There's Sunday night. There was. 9:12, after we had all gone home, after I had taken the keys off the hook and put the spare set in his hand. Went okay, I think. Elle took it hard. She gets like that. You did good, Ma. I set the phone face down on her side table. I have spent 26 years learning to say what a file shows and not one word past it, so let me say what this file showed. My brother borrowed his mother's car on a morning when losing a day of work might have cost him his job, and she gave it to him freely, and none of that was a crime or even a sin. Then he hit a parked car in a pharmacy lot at 2:20 in the afternoon. He left a note, which is more than a lot of people do, and I will give him that for the rest of my life. Then he asked for one night. Then he took a story that the family was already halfway to believing on its own, and he stood back and let it finish walking. He did not invent an old woman who was slipping. He found one in our heads, already built, and he moved in. And when it was done and the keys were in his pocket, the restriction that we all thought was protecting her was the best cover he could have asked for, because a car nobody is supposed to be driving is a car nobody checks. 463 miles. I said out loud. Elena. He's been running his route in it. He's been putting 180 miles on your car in a day and pulling into a body shop about the damage he did, and every one of us would have sworn on a Bible that car hadn't moved. Elena, my mother said again, and something in her voice made me stop. She was sitting very straight. She had her hands folded in her lap, the way she does in doctors' offices and in church, and she was looking at the window and not at me. I want you to let it alone, she said. I heard the words in order, and they still did not go together. Let it alone. That company will fire him. You know they will, and the insurance part will follow him around for years, and that girl is 17. She swallowed. Ava has 1 year of high school left in one house. She's already lost the other one. Mom. I have a car I don't drive, my mother said. He has a daughter. And then she said the sentence that I have not been able to put down since. I gave it up once for him already, Elena. What's the difference if I do it twice? I drove home the long way, out past the reservoir, because I did not trust myself on the highway. I had the whole thing built by the time I hit the county line. It is not hard when you do it for a living. There is a claim open on my mother's policy from that Thursday in April, and on that claim there is a line that says who was operating the vehicle, and that line is wrong. There is a phone number in a property manager's incident packet that does not belong to the woman whose name is on the paper. There is a body shop ticket with a customer on it. Any one of those, handed to the right department, starts a review. All 3 together do not start a review. They start a file. I could have made that call from my own driveway, in about 4 minutes, using nothing but my own reading glasses and a dead-level voice. I sat in the car outside my house instead, with the engine ticking, and I asked myself the question I ask claimants when they want me to take a shortcut on their behalf. Who authorized you? Nobody. Nobody had authorized me in April either. I had built a folder about a woman without ever sitting alone in a room with her, and I had walked into her house and taken the keys off her wall, and the whole time I had felt like a good daughter doing a hard thing. That is the part that will not scab over. I did not do it because I am cruel. I did it because deciding is the only way I know how to love people, and because a woman who has been the family fixer for 30 years stops noticing that fixing and taking are done with the same hand. If I picked up the phone that night, I would be doing it again. Faster, better documented, and on the right side this time, which is exactly how it would have felt in April too. I went back the next morning with 2 coffees, the same as always, and I said the thing I should have said in her front room with 5 people watching. I was wrong in April, I told her. Not about the evidence, about the way I got it. I never once asked you by yourself, and I took your keys off your wall, and I'm sorry. She let me finish. She did not rush in to make it easier, which she could have, and I understood that she had been waiting for this and was not going to spend it cheaply. All right, she said. And then, not that kind of all right. The real one. Then I put the choices on her table like a claims menu, because that is my one useful trick, and for once I used it on the right person. 1. Do nothing. The record stays as it is, her name stays on that loss, her rates carry it, and her son keeps a key to her car. 2. I make the call. Fraud referral. Everything I have, out of her hands and into a process that will do what it does regardless of what anyone in this family wants afterward. 3. She does it. Every piece of paper in this is hers by right. The policy is hers. The vehicle is hers. The incident packet came to her because she owns the car. She sets the terms. She decides what gets corrected. She decides what does not get burned down. And what does 3 cost me? She said. It costs you a conversation with him at this table with me in the room. And it costs you proving something you shouldn't have to prove. She knew what I meant before I said it. The evaluation, she said. Not for us. For you. So that when you say I'm fine, it isn't your word against a folder. My mother sat with that for a long time. Then she got up and took her address book down from the shelf over the phone, the paper one, and she made 2 appointments with her own hands while I sat there and did not touch the phone once. The first was at a driving evaluation program at the rehabilitation center off the state route, the kind run by occupational therapists, 3 hours, vision and reaction and a road test in their car with their instructor. The second was a recorded call with her insurance company to correct the operator listed on an open claim. She scheduled the evaluation first, on purpose. Because if I'm wrong about myself, she said, then he was right for the wrong reasons and I'd rather find that out before I put my son through Sunday. He came at 2 on the Sunday because she asked him to, and because she said on the phone that she wanted help moving a chest of drawers, which was the only untrue thing my mother said in 5 weeks, and which I have decided not to hold against her. She sat at the head of her own kitchen table. I sat at the side, with my hands flat, and I did not speak for the first 11 minutes. That was the agreement. She had the papers in a stack, face down, in order. Sit down, Mark, she said. Nobody's yelling. He sat. He looked at the stack. He is a big man who makes himself smaller in his mother's kitchen, and for 1 second I felt so sorry for him I could have gotten up and left. Ma, if this is about the van thing, I know I should have called you back. She turned over the toll notice. He looked at it for about 4 seconds and started in on the cameras, the plate readers, the digit off, and my mother let him finish. She has always let people finish. Then she turned over the photographs of her car, the fog light, and the sticker and the school decal. Then the receipt from the body shop with his name in the customer box and the ticket written at 3:52 that same afternoon. Then the route sheet with the West Virginia stops on it. Then Samuel Price's packet, with the photograph of the note under the wiper blade and his handwriting on it, and the phone number typed into the summary line. Then, last, her phone, unlocked, turned around to face him, open to a Saturday in April. He did not argue with any of it. I have sat across from 100 people in that exact moment, and there is a physical thing that happens, a kind of settling, when a man stops looking for the door. I was going to put it back, he said. You did put it back, my mother said. Every night. That's the part I can't get over, Mark. You put it back every night. He said the rest of it to the table. The van repair had come in worse than he expected. The route was the route. He had the spare key in his pocket after that Sunday, and the car was sitting in a garage that everyone in the family had agreed nobody was going to touch. And I want to give you his sentence exactly, because he did not dress it up, and I think that is the closest he came to being honest with himself in 5 weeks. Nobody checks a car that's already off the road. That is the whole story. That is what the intervention did. We took her keys to make her safe, and what we actually did was build him a garage that nobody would ever open. And the pharmacy, my mother said. He was quiet. Say it in this room, she said, or say it to a stranger on the telephone tomorrow. Those are the 2 ways this goes. It was me, he said. I backed into her. I left a note, Ma. I did leave a note. I know you did. And then Elle called me on the Sunday, and the whole thing was all ready. He stopped. He rubbed his face with both hands. It was already going, and I let it. Nobody threw anything. Nobody made a speech. My mother pulled a legal pad over and uncapped a pen, and what happened for the next 40 minutes was the least dramatic thing I have ever been part of, and the only one I would do again exactly the same way. She wrote out what she wanted, and she read each line out loud, and he agreed to each line before she went to the next one. He would be on the recorded call with the insurer on Tuesday morning and state that he was the operator of the vehicle in the April loss and answer whatever they asked him. He would put the spare key I had handed him in April into her hand that afternoon before he left the house. He would write down every trip he had taken in the car since the Sunday of the family meeting, with dates, as best he could remember, and sign it. He would pay the $86 in tolls and fees, and he would pay the $1,740 of damage to her car at a fixed amount every month, and the schedule went at the bottom of the page, with a line for a date and a line for his name. There is nothing in there about his job. My mother would not put it in. When I raised it once, she said, I'm not correcting a record at that company. I'm correcting mine. And that was the end of it. He is a grown man with a service route and an employer, and what he decides to tell them is his to carry. He signed it at 4:20 in the afternoon. He put the spare ring on the table, and this time my mother picked it up herself and held it in her closed hand until he had gone out the door. At the door, he turned around and asked whether he was still supposed to come at Thanksgiving. You're my son, my mother said. You're not driving my car. I stayed and did the dishes. Neither of us said much. Around 6, she hung that key back on the 4th hook by the door, where my father's piece of walnut has held it since before either of her children had gray in their hair, and she stood there a second longer than she needed to before she turned off the kitchen light. 3 days later, she went in for the evaluation with that key in her own coat pocket, and I sat in the waiting room for 3 hours and 20 minutes and did not once ask the receptionist how it was going. She passed. Not passed with an argument. Not passed with a caveat somebody in the family could pick up and carry around. Vision fine with her glasses. Reaction time in range for her age and, the therapist said, better than a fair number of people 20 years younger. Road test in the center's own car with a dual brake and an instructor who told her she signals earlier than anyone he had tested that month. One recommendation came out of it, and my mother had already been living by it for 6 years. She does not drive the interstate after dark. It was on the report in a small box, and she read it and said, well, I could have told him that for free. On the Tuesday, the insurer's recorded line. 22 minutes. Her first, as the owner, and then my brother, who did what he said he would do, in a flat voice, and did not try to be liked. The operator on the April loss was corrected. My mother's record went back to what it had been for 58 years of driving, which is empty. The toll authority took a copy of the dispute with the shop receipt and the signed trip list attached, and moved the $86 to the person who drove through the plaza. I did one more thing, and it is the one I think about. I brought back everything of hers I had been holding. The folder from April, which I did not open again, and which is in a landfill now. Her mail, which I had been sorting since the spring with her permission, and which I had gotten a great deal more comfortable with than permission covered. The set of car keys out of my kitchen drawer. Her policy login, written on a card in my handwriting. You can still open the mail, she said. I like it when you come. I'll open what you hand me. She thought about that. That'll be most of it, she said. Not all of it. She put her own set back on the second hook, where it belongs. Then she took the spare, the one that had gone 463 miles without her, and she sealed it in the envelope she keeps her savings bond in, and wrote the date on the front, and put it in the middle drawer of her desk. The drawer does not lock. It has never needed to. Mark's first payment came in the second week of September, a check in an envelope with nothing else in it. The second came in October, on time, same as the first. He and I have spoken 4 times since April, all of them short, all of them about Ava, who calls her grandmother on Sunday afternoons and who has never been told any of this by me. That is her father's to tell. He may never. Some doors you leave for the person who has to walk through them. I would like to end this by telling you our family got put back together. It didn't. What got put back together was the truth, and the truth is not the same thing as the family, and at 58 I am finally old enough to know that a person can be worth loving and still not be worth trusting with a key. On a Wednesday in the middle of October, my mother drove me to the pharmacy. She came in off the state route, in daylight, signaling early, and she went slowly down the row past the long dark seam in the asphalt where the patch is, and she parked between the lines near the cart return. Samuel Price was out front moving a sandwich board, and he raised a hand to her, and she raised one back. She went in for her prescription, and I waited in the passenger seat of her car, in the seat where I belong. Her keys were in her coat pocket. The only other set in the world was 4 miles away in the middle drawer of her own desk, sealed in an envelope with the date on the front in her handwriting, in a house where nobody takes anything off a hook anymore without asking her first.